Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a field you've absolutely experienced, even if you've never heard of it. We are talking about the people who design how we learn, the unseen architects of knowledge.
I mean, think about it. Why is some corporate training actually useful, while a different course feels like a total waste of time? Why do you love one app for learning a language, but hate another? Well, it is not an accident. There's a whole science and an art to it, a field totally dedicated to making learning stick.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to try to figure out what this field is even called. Then we'll dive into the big psychological theories that are its engine. After that, we'll see how all that theory gets put into practice. And finally, we'll take a look at where this is all going.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the name. And if you find all the different terms confusing, you're definitely not alone. This field has kind of gone through an identity crisis over the last 100 years or so, with its name and its focus shifting pretty dramatically.
You can really see the whole story just by looking at this timeline. It all started back in the 20s, focused on things, the actual films and slides they called visual instruction. Then by the 60s, it shifted to being about a systematic process. Then it became all about improving performance, and now, today, the focus is on the total learning experience.
And this right here shows that evolution perfectly. Just look at these two official definitions. Back in 1970, the whole field was defined by its tools. TVs, films, computers. Fast forward to 2008, and the definition has nothing to do with hardware. Instead, it's about a purpose, facilitating learning and improving performance. That is a massive shift, from talking about what we use to what we do and why we do it.
So what's actually driving all of these design decisions? Well, it really comes down to three huge psychological theories. You can think of them as the core engine of this entire field.
So first up, we've got behaviorism. This theory doesn't really care what's going on inside your head. Nope, it's all about what we can see and observe. The whole idea is to set up the environment with just the right cues and rewards so that you perform the right actions over and over again until they become second nature. Think flashcards, drills, and getting that immediate feedback. Then along came cognitivism, which pretty much said, whoa, hold on a second, the mind is not a black box. It uses the computer as a metaphor. Our brains are like hardware, taking in information, processing it in our short-term memory, and then filing it away in these organized little structures in our long-term memory. So this view is all about making information super clear, organized, and easy to recall.
And that brings us to constructivism. Now, this theory argues that we're not just computers processing information. We are actively building our own unique understanding of the world. Knowledge isn't just something that's delivered to us. It's something we create ourselves by connecting new experiences to stuff we already know, usually by talking and working with other people.
The biggest difference between these theories really just boils down to how they see the learner. Look at this progression here. You go from being a passive responder in behaviorism to an active processor in cognitivism, and finally to an active creator of your own meaning in constructivism. This changing view of the learner, it's everything. It's what decides if an architect builds you a simple drill, a well-structured lesson, or a messy, complex problem for your team to solve together.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But how does an instructional designer take these big, abstract ideas and turn them into a real course that actually helps someone learn something new? Let's look at a few blueprints in action.
A perfect example of this is something called cognitive apprenticeship, which comes straight out of constructivist ideas. The whole point here is to make an expert's invisible internal thinking process totally visible to a beginner. So the expert shows how they do it, thinking out loud. Then they coach the learner, give them support or scaffolding that they slowly take away, and they push the learner to explain their own thinking until eventually they can fly solo.
Even words we kind of use interchangeably have totally different roots. Take cooperative learning. That's usually way more structured. The teacher sets the goals, divides up the work, and holds every person accountable for their little piece of the puzzle. But collaborative learning? That's much looser. It gives way more authority to the group to figure it all out together, sharing the responsibility for the whole thing. See the difference? One puts the teacher in control, the other empowers the learners.
And all of this brings us to right now, to where the field is really heading. All of these different threads, the focus on process, all the learning theories, the practical strategies, they're all starting to weave together into a new, much more holistic approach.
So, say hello to Learning Experience Design, or LXD. It's what happens when you smash together the scientific rigor of instructional design with the empathy and the methods of user experience, or UX, design.
The question is no longer just, is the learning effective? It's also, is it efficient? Is it engaging? Is it enjoyable?
So what really makes LXD different is that its focus is just so much bigger. It's human-centric, which means it thinks about everyone involved. The student, sure, but also the teacher, the administrator. It's still grounded in theory, but it's also really sensitive to the user's culture and context. And it borrows a ton from the UX playbook, using tools like prototyping and design thinking to build better learning from the very start.
And hey, this is not just some academic idea. A recent analysis of actual job postings found that design thinking, a core UX skill, was mentioned in over half of all learning experience design roles. And for the traditional instructional design jobs, just 5%. I mean, this is a real, measurable shift that's happening in the professional world as we speak.
And this is why this all matters so much. The app that teaches your kid math, the virtual reality training that a surgeon uses, the onboarding program at your new job, every single one of them is a designed experience. These unseen architects are shaping not just what we know, but the entire process of how we come to know it. So the question they're asking now is no longer just what will people learn, but what kind of experience are we going to design for them?